Good morning, everybody. Great to see you all here. Thank you for being a part of this. I just want to welcome everybody to the regional elections webinar. I want to give you a brief overview of our SSCCC and what we do as an organization. So first off, the introduction to the SSCCC. We are the official voice for the over 2.1 million students in the California community colleges. That's 116 community colleges split up over 73 districts. And the authority of the SSCCC is really derived from Title V, from the Education Code. We're recognized by the Board of Governors, by the California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office. The mission of the SSCCC is to pursue policies that will improve student access, promote student success, engage and empower local student leaders, and enrich the collegiate experience for all California community college students. That's what we're here to do as the SSCCC, and we do that through our whole General Assembly process, our resolution process, and so on and so forth. Could we get the next slide? As a student representative voice of students, the SSCCC has 3 pillars of engagement to facilitate the involvement of students on California community college campuses through our 10 regions. These 3 pillars are system participatory governance. That is our involvement in our committees throughout the state. We have our legislative and policy advocacy. This year, we've actually sponsored 4 different assembly bills that are going to be seeing the floor in California this year. And then regional support and development. That's through our regional officers, which are you all, supporting our regions and really investing in those student leaders.
All right, and now that Stephen has introduced the SSCCC for us all, I will now get into more of the actual structure that we have as a system. So at the very top, you'll see the executive committee, and the executive committee is made up of the president, the vice president of regional affairs, the vice president of legislative affairs, the vice president of finance, and the vice president of communications. The immediate past exec is an executive from the previous year who has been asked to help the current executives for, I believe, 6 months. And then the executive director, our executive director is Julie Adams, and she helps out the entire executive committee and really the entire system as a whole. She does a lot of work to help us out in general. And so the most important part of the structure I'd really like to highlight is the way each executive is essentially leading certain regional officers. So the regional affairs directors, as you can see under regional officers, the regional affairs directors are being led by the vice president of regional affairs. The vice chairs are being led by the vice president, the LADs by the VPLA, the treasurers by the VPF, and the comms officers by the VPC. Additionally, 2 regional officers, the regional affairs director and the legislative affairs director, are considered directors. So if you are interested in a regional affairs director position or a legislative affairs director position, you will have the additional responsibility of being on the board of directors, which would require you to attend a monthly board of directors meeting and submit monthly director reports. We will actually hear from both a RAD and a LAD today on their experience as a director. And with that, you can go ahead and come to the next slide. So I'll now discuss the purpose of our SSCCC regions. So within the SSCCC, we have grouped up certain colleges to be in certain regions. California is huge, and so we have a total of 10 regions that we have split our colleges into. We have Region 1 that is all the way up north. We have Region 10, which is all the way down south, and all of the other regions are in between. So these regions hold monthly delegate assembly meetings, and they are responsible for the following bullet points. This is taken directly from our Constitution. So the first, they are responsible for serving as a collective voice of local student body associations within each region as organized by the delegate assembly. So for example, I am from Region 5. And Region 5 is the region that serves as the collective voice of the 12 student body associations within our area, which is the Central Valley. And next, they also serve as the liaison entity between the local student body associations and the board of directors. So the regions are also responsible for disseminating information from the local SBAs to and from the board of directors. So most regions have something like a board of directors update on their monthly region delegate assembly agendas, and where the delegates are updated on what is going on within the board of directors. And vice versa is also extremely important. Part of the monthly board of directors report for the regional affairs director includes an update on the region itself as a whole. So again, the region just serves as this liaison between the SBAs and the board of directors. Next is collecting, oh, not next slide. Thank you, is collecting and promoting best practices among local student body associations. So for this one, there have been several instances where delegates have come to the SSCCC and the SSCCC regions for assistance with ensuring their student body association is following, say, the Brown Act or Robert's Rules of Order correctly. We've seen SBAs that weren't publicly posting their agendas, for example, which is a violation of the Brown Act. And in these instances, the region has helped these student body associations to ensure that they are in compliance with the Brown Act and are following Robert's rules correctly. And so that's kind of what the regions do, is they really help out the student body associations that are within their area. And then next is soliciting and / disseminating information from or to and from local student body associations and the board regarding the activities of both. So this one is very similar to the second one that I discussed. The region just helps to disseminate information to the board about what the region is doing, and the region is also updated on what the board is doing. Next, electing the membership of the board of directors. So the region also holds elections to fill the regional affairs director and legislative affairs director positions, as well as all of the other regional officers that we will be discussing today. Those elections will always be held in May, which has been approved via the new standardized elections timeline. So these elections will always be held in May and also throughout the year as vacancies arise. And then lastly, providing additional support as may be requested by the delegate assembly and or the board of directors. So all in all, the regions are really just support systems for our student leaders throughout the state. And sometimes there is additional support that is needed in certain areas, and the regions and the board of directors are always there to help. And that's really their main purpose. And with that, we'll move on to the next slide. Thank you. So we will now move into basically the main purpose of this webinar, the regional officer positions. So within each region, there are 5 regional officers. Number 1 is the regional affairs director. Number 2 is the vice chair. Then there's the legislative affairs director, the treasurer, and the communications officer. So these 5 officers all together create the regional executive boards, and the regional executive board is responsible for upholding the responsibilities of the region that I just discussed, as well as just maintaining an effective and supportive region. And we have some very wonderful presenters here today that have spent a lot of time in their regional officer position and are going to speak to all of you about their experiences in that position. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Thank you. So like I said, all the speakers here today will be focused on answering the following questions during their presentations. Number 1, what is the primary focus of your position? How has your role directly impacted the success of your region or the SSCCC? What is one challenge you have encountered with your position and how did you overcome it? What is the most rewarding part of being your position? How are you able to manage your personal, professional, and academic commitments? And lastly, as I mentioned when discussing the structure of the SSCCC, the regional affairs directors and the legislative affairs directors are both part of the board of directors as well. So the presenters we have for those 2 positions will also be telling you about their experience within the board of directors. All right, so with that being said, I'm happy to introduce our first presenter on the position of regional affairs director, Gerardo Chavez. Take it away.
All right, thank you so much, Emma, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gerardo Chavez, and I am the Regional Affairs Director for Region 9, and I am going to be giving you an insight on what is a day like for a Regional Affairs Director. But before that, we have to take in consideration that a Regional Affairs Director acts as the official spokesperson for the region, meaning that, for example, whenever you're going to meet with college administration officials or a delegate, when they see you, they see the region. Um, and a little bit more is that you serve on the board of directors as a voting member. That means that your role is really split into two. You have to worry about your region, your regional work, but also the statewide, which is in the board of directors, the committees that you serve on, whether that is equitable practices, rules, not rules and resolutions anymore, but resolutions committee, conference. So your role is really split into two. In my experience within the board of directors has been phenomenal. That is where I have seen that my leadership has grown, and I've been more exposed to various experiences that have made me more aware of the issues of students on a larger scale. Some of us maybe only focused in what is going on with our regions, but when you step up into the state level, you have a wider perspective on the situations of students. Also, the opportunities are more impactful in the sense that you're able to work with system partners like the Academic Senate or the Chancellor's Office. And you're also able to join committees like resolutions committee, and you're able to really dig in more into the resolution process. Or as a regional affairs director, you're able to support other regions. You're able to, take up more work within the regional affairs committee, just like how I am doing with this webinar. Another role that another job description that I just mentioned is serve on two SSCCC internal committees, and those committees will be explained later on in this webinar. And then serve at least one statewide participatory governance committees. Within our student body associations within our own campus, students have the opportunity to serve on shared governance committees, committees that students participate, college staff and faculty participate. That's no difference in what we do within the SSCCC. We have system partners and we share committees with them. For example, one of them that I'm in the committee is the AB 705 committee, and we focus on ESL and the remedial courses and advanced placement tests. So that is just an area that as a regional affairs director, as a member of the board of directors, or even if you're working within the SSCCC, you get an opportunity to participate in that. Also, a little bit more on the regional level, it is establishing and maintaining communication with the local student body associations of the region. That is very important because essentially your main focus within July, August, and September is college activation. And you're not able to activate the colleges unless if you actually reach out to those student body association. And that requires sitting down with advisors, sitting down with the SBA president, or even attending their meetings and just being present at their meetings and making sure that they know that your region is present. Another one is preside over the meetings of the Region Delegate Assembly and the Region Executive Board. The Region Delegate Assembly, that is where all the delegates meet, and you are chairing that meeting. That is where, as a regional affairs director, you take on the lead on, what are we gonna talk about? What do the delegates want to talk about? You have to reach out to your delegates and get to know what are their interests, what are the areas of advocacy that they want to focus on. But then there's also the region executive board. You are, the team captain. So as being a team captain, you have to make sure that every area within your executive board is working perfectly. Not perfectly, but at least everybody's on the same page, whether that is making sure that people are submitting reports or making sure that your executive board officers are attending their committee meetings, that they are holding their own meetings, and overall just providing support. Another one is present 2 annual State of the Region addresses, one at the beginning and one at the end. This is essentially the same concept of what a president does at their State of the Union. You are just giving an update on the work that you have been doing within the region, the state of the region, your progress, what has your region been doing in the past few months, and what are your plans. So you're just giving your region, your constituents, an update on your work, because at the end of the day, you are accountable to your constituents. And then the last three, making regular visits to each local student body association for the academic year. It's very important that you are there for your student body associations. It is essential that at least they know that you are the regional affairs director, that they know what is Region 9 in the SSCCC, so that way you're able to collaborate. Because as a regional affairs director this year, I have noticed that not a lot of students know what the SCCC is, yet alone incoming new leaders and SBAs. So it's just important that you are there to relay information, support your delegates. Whenever, for example, one of the things that I did for General Assembly is that a lot of the delegates needed help with explaining resolutions, also assistance in how to read the resolutions. So that is just one of the things that I took up upon myself. And then also serving as an alternate voting member for any of the SCCC internal committees. As an example, let's say that the legislative affairs director can't make it to their legislative affairs committee. Either myself as the RAD or the region vice chair, we're able to go on their behalf and be a quote unquote substitute in case if they're not able to make it. And then lastly, serve as a non-voting ex officio member of all the region committees. You are there to be an advisor. You're there to supervise, to make sure that the region executive board officer is doing a good job. Just essentially just to be there if there are any questions or the committee needs anything else from you. And now to the questions. Let me pull up the questions. So what is the primary focus of your position? Everything that I just talked about. Your main role is to make sure that the region is running smoothly, that you're supporting and that you are helping out your delegates, your region executive board officers. Because at the end of the day, they are following your lead. You are the team captain, so it is your responsibility that if there's something wrong in the region, that you are able to respond to it. Also, you are the official spokesperson of the region, so there's something that needs your attention. For example, like the anti-Asian hate events that are going on in the world. As a regional affairs director, one of the things that I recommend is that create a statement, work with your region, respond to it. And then the second question is, how has your role directly impacted the success of your region or the SSCCC? Just as a regional affairs director, I'm sure that my region executive board officers can testify to this, but I've been there to support them, to make sure that they know what they're supposed to be doing, providing that support, that training, but also for the delegates, making sure that they understand the role as a delegate, that they're able to communicate with us, but also relay that communication with their SBA. And that has been one of the most rewarding parts of this role, is seeing how from the very beginning, the delegates are very shy and timid, but then towards the middle and the end of the year, you see them thrive and you see them take really ownership of their role. And one of the ways that I've seen it is within our committees. They're very intrigued and interested in what they're doing. We see delegates in my region who are really taking the newsletter that they're working on as their own. So that is one of the most rewarding aspects of this role. But there are challenges within the regional affairs director position. I'm not gonna lie. There are days where not everything's working out perfectly. Sometimes somebody makes an error or something like that. And overall, just the challenge is working with a team. Definitely setting those expectations, that is the most challenging part. And then also the other challenging part of being a regional affairs director is prioritizing. Because there's a lot of things that you do as a regional affairs director on the regional level, on the statewide level, and you have to make sure that you're fulfilling both roles efficiently. And it just comes back to the last question: how am I able to manage my own time and then my professional life and my academics? It's prioritizing. If I know that I have a meeting coming up, I knock down the agenda as soon as possible. I send it out. I don't wait till the last minute. If I know that I have assignments coming up that are going to be due on the same day as board of directors or a meeting, I work ahead. So that way I'm not stressing out at the last minute. And that is essentially what it's the role of the regional affairs director. So I will now pass it on to the Region 9 Vice Chair, Stephanie Perez.
Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Stephanie Perez. I serve as the Region 9 Vice Chair, and I will explain some of the responsibilities as a Vice Chair. So, as the Vice Chair, we assume the duties of the Region Chair, Regional Affairs Director in their absence. That means that, let's say that my RAD, the RAD from my region is not able to make it from any circumstance, or maybe there's another meeting and, he cannot attend the meeting that we had, then I get to do that. I get to go and represent our region, and yeah, just be there to get all of the information that is needed, and then, report back on our executive board. Another responsibility is immediately succeeding the position of the region chair, regional affairs director, once the position becomes vacant. Same thing. If for any circumstance Brad is removed, or he decides that he can no longer be the RAD, like I said, for any circumstance, then just like the president and the vice president, then it will be my job to succeed the position. Another responsibility is collect and maintain the record of region committees membership, region reports, and other official documents as necessary. Prepare and maintain the region accountability reports. Chair the Regional Internal Affairs Committee, which they're going to explain in a little bit what the what the Internal Affairs Committee is. Must serve as a voting member on the Internal Affairs Committee, may serve as an alternate voting member in the absence of any regional office on any SSCCC internal committee, and serve as a non-voting ex officio member of all the region committees. As I explained before, when we as a region, we don't have a position that is filled like during this year, or communications committee chair was not able to longer be the director, then I had to step up and chair the meetings, and attend some of the communications officer meetings from the SSCCC, and then just keep on going with the work, because at the end we need to move on and we need to continue to serve out the students. So now moving on to the questions. What is one challenge you have encountered within your position, and how did you overcome it? As Rad said earlier, I think the communication, building the communication with when you're working with the team. Sometimes when you don't know who your teammates are, sometimes it's very hard to build that communication. But I always like to keep myself positive and just trying to be there, and just making sure, to always let them know that I'm there if they need anything. And yeah, just try to explain any questions and, anything that they might need. What is the most rewarding part of being in this position? The most rewarding part about this is the experience and the knowledge that I've gained through all this year. It's very crazy, and I talk about it all the time. Time just passed by very, very fast. And at the beginning, when Brad Chavez explained to me about the SSCCC, I had no idea what he was talking about, but then I said, I'm on board, let's learn. And then I can't believe that I'm here with all of you guys, and I have met many, many people. And like I said, the experience and the knowledge that I have gained from all of you guys, it's amazing. So that's the most rewarding part of being in this position. How are you able to manage your personal, professional, and academic commitments? A calendar. The calendar becomes your best friend. Make sure that every time that you have a meeting, that you need to send out an agenda, that you have your assignments, as Rad said, make sure you write it down. Make sure that if you have to put alarms and 15, 30 minutes prior to your deadline. I always like to work ahead of time just so I don't get caught up with everything or do anything, everything at the last minute. And yeah, just try your best to keep yourself organized and just to work ahead. And now I am going to pass it on to Stephen, and he will talk about the Internal Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate that. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the Internal Affairs Committee, because that's something brand new that has been introduced this year. The Internal Affairs Committee was established really to give vice chairs a little bit more purpose. We had some directors and some vice chairs that had reached out to us and said, hey, as a vice chair, I really don't know exactly what my role is, right? What am I supposed to be doing? I don't sit on the board of directors, yet I'm the second in command, right? In my region, where can I find more purpose? And really, there were things that the vice chair was doing, but it wasn't really part of their role. So we wanted to make sure that was established. So when we came up with the Internal Affairs Committee, it started at the state level and also at the regional level. So we have a statewide internal affairs committee that deals with the internal affairs of the entire organization. And then there's your regional internal affairs committee. And when I think internal affairs, the word that really comes to mind is accountability, right? When you think internal affairs, you're thinking what is being done internally? What are the rules that are governing our region or the organization? What are the things that we need to remain accountable for? What is that? Our reports, our attendance, our committee membership, right? So as a vice chair, you are now, and you were before, but now you have a more intentional role of having to do the accountability reports for your region, and submitting those to the statewide internal affairs committee. You have now the committee membership makeup, so you need to make sure that our delegates are attending their respective committees along with the region officers. You have to make sure that they remain accountable by doing that, because the SSCCC has now recently made it possible for all region officers to now receive their stipend, right? So all regional officers are now going to be receiving a stipend. So we need to make sure that they remain accountable in the duties of their office. So the Internal Affairs Committee, you're going to develop and facilitate onboarding trainings within your regions. So the trainings will probably come from the Regional Affairs Committee, and they'll say, hey, we need to do some onboarding for our new officers. And within your committee, you'll be able to work on that training and be able to onboard those new students, those new student leaders into your region. What is it specific about your region that they need to know? You'll also develop regional and board policies. As I said earlier, when you think internal affairs, what are those policies and rules that are governing your region? So the statewide organization has policies that are going for the entire state and that the region needs to abide by, but there are certain aspects that you can have your own authenticity, and you can come up with those policies on your own. Um, and just as long as they do not conflict with our statewide policies, right? And then you will also approve the regional accountability reports, making sure, as I said, that students are being accounted for in their committees, in the delegate assembly. They're turning in their reports because in the future, we're going to hopefully be able to provide some sort of compensation stipend for our delegates also. So we need to make sure that they're being accounted for. So as being a vice chair, you will be chairing your internal affairs committee for your region, and then you will be a member of the statewide internal affairs committee for along with all the other vice chairs from the SSCCC. And as a vice chair, I know I've never served as a vice chair. I had an amazing vice chair when I was RAD last year. I had Emma McNellis, who is now our VPRA. But as a vice chair, it's hard. I'm not going to go through the questions because, as I said, I never served. But I know it's hard to delineate what it is that you are there to do, because you, as I said, you're that second in the chain of command, yet you don't serve on the board of directors. So it's really like, what are those aspects where I can really get involved? You are serving in the capacity where you can be on every internal committee of your region. You can also be serving when other student leaders can't make it, or your other region officers can't make it to their committee. You can serve in that absence. So remaining accountable, being able to do all those things, just finding the line to be able to support your RAD, support the other officers is huge. And I'll pass it to Gian.
Thank you for the introduction, President Stephen Codor. My name is Jean Gaetao. I'm the Legislative Affairs Director for Region 5, the Central Valley, and I'll be going over the duties and responsibilities of the Legislative Affairs Director within our regions. So the first primary responsibility or focus of the Legislative Affairs Director is to direct all legislative and advocacy efforts of the regions. And a big integral part of being able to execute that duty and responsibility is making sure that we are, as a legislative affairs director, familiarizing ourselves, if elected, at the beginning of our terms with the legislative process. How an idea goes into in committees in both chambers of our legislature. So that would be the California State Assembly and the California State Senate, and how those bills would go into committee hearings and readings, and a lot of discussion, debate, and making sure that we're able to provide the best solutions for any problem that comes up within that bill, making sure that we have resolves that will be effective when we do execute it, when they are being executed by our branches of government within the state of California. Second duty is serving as voting member on the board of directors. So just like the regional affairs director, the legislative affairs director also serves as a voting member on the SSCCC's board. We are entrusted with this fiduciary responsibility to be able to make the proper decisions that will really encompass the policies of the board that we make in improving student access, as stated in our mission, and making sure that we really pursue policies that will help students the most and the best way possible. Third duty is facilitating communication with government representatives in the region, including district offices or statewide officials. So this is regarding advocacy in local and state efforts, being able to talk and communicate effectively with offices of representatives within your region, whether that be on a state level or a federal level, or community leaders within your respective cities and colleges, your administration, or your respective college district, your mayor or city council, and making sure that you collaborate with them to make sure that student voice is being heard and empowered, and you ensure that you work with them to get the best outcome for students as much as possible. Fourth on the list is disseminate and communicate all pertinent legislative information and advocacy efforts. So this is where um, uh, you manage effectively your regional committee. So within your region, as legislative affairs director, you are the head of the legislative affairs committee, just like we do have on the board. So the next 3 points will includes presiding over the meetings, preparing and disseminating your agendas within your internal committee within the region, as well as engaging community college students as much as possible. So even though you are the head of the legislative affairs committee, you will really need all the help you can get, because as we mentioned earlier, we represent over 2 million students in the state of California, and within our districts, we represent thousands thousands of students. So it really is, there is a big responsibility that is involved with any of the positions that we have on the executive board. But it also gives us just as much same drive to make sure that we're actually executing our responsibilities well, to make sure that we are figuring out what the problems of the students are. And at the beginning of the year, as legislative affairs director, on the board, we figure out what are the priorities that we're going to be prioritizing this year. And then for this year, it's been the problems that we faced before, and problems that we've made that have been made worse by this pandemic. And so, as President Codor mentioned earlier, we're sponsoring 4 bills directly in the California State Legislature. Those 4 being Assembly Bill 775 for inputting basic needs centers and coordinators within the state. AB 337, which is providing voting rights to the first-year student member on the Board of Governors. Third is AB 1456 to fix financial aid through the Cal Grant reform system. And fourth is AB 1216 for granting student trustees on district boards an advisory vote, the right to proper compensation, the right to make and second motions, and also a working group to make sure that we can fight for a full vote in the future. So for this year, those were our priorities. But for the next year, it may be the same. It may be different. As we've passed resolutions recently last week in our General Assembly, some of the issues that we're focusing on is securing mental health resources even more, as we have commitments from our system partners to do the same, making sure that students are able to or reflect who will teach them through hiring committees, making sure that they are getting the education that they deserve in their colleges. And then others are nursing program resources. As we've known, the pandemic has hit us hard. We have to make sure that we, as a system, maintain our workforce well, and affordable low-income housing, and even more. So it really is a lot of being able to identify the problem, making sure that we do all the work with everyone to figure out solutions for that problem. And third is delegating information back to our regions. And now that we've discussed the role, I'll tell you a little bit about my experience going over the questions. So my role, I think, is just as integral, just as important as any of the positions in the board. We all have this one responsibility, which is to serve students, to help students in any way they can, because education will and always will be the greatest equalizer. It is the path to not, academically, we have to make sure that students have the resources and skills they need through mentorships or opportunities, or any material that they need to succeed in and out of class and further on in life. So I think just be mindful that it is it is a team effort. It will always be a team effort here at the SSCCC, making sure that we align with that one goal always. One of the challenges as a legislative affairs director that you might face will be communication with the legislative offices throughout the regions. One problem that we had just a couple months ago was a vacancy left by Assembly member Shirley Weber when she ascended to the Secretary of State position, vacated by now Senator Alex Padilla. And we had to find an author for the bill. So we had to scramble within this specific timeline to find an author. And I would say it was a bit stressful knowing the fact that we had to meet that deadline to ensure this bill goes through the assembly. So it's a matter of being able to adapt and transform to any situation, adapt and transform to rejections, or working forwards if you find an author for any bill or find a sponsor that you can work with in the legislature. And I would say fourth, the most rewarding part of this job, I would say it's just all the relationships that you are bound by. Whether it be on the board or anyone that you meet along the way, it's definitely something that you will cherish for the rest of your life. It's this experience serving on the board has been priceless to me. It's really been important. It's been hard, but it's been fun. At the same time, and we just have to make sure that it's always public service at front and center, making sure that we do the best of our abilities to make sure that students are being served at the end of the day, and making sure that they have all the help that they need, to succeed, to succeed, and making sure that they have this balance, and making sure that they have the focus that they need. And I think the last part of the question is how do I manage personal, academic, and professional? I would say my main advice would be just let your heart be your guide, your passion, whether it be your passion to be a part of something far greater than yourselves, be your passion to serve others, to help others, and let your mind keep you aligned with that goal, and the rest we'll worry about with itself, as long as you work hard, as long as you always strive to do what is right and keep fighting for students. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them at the end of this webinar. And now I'll be passing it on to Treasurer Inderpal Dhaliwal.
Thank you, Gian. Hey everyone, my name is Inderpal Dhaliwal. I am the treasurer for Region 2. So I would like to just get started on, before we go over the 10-step process, which you see on the screen, kind of what it entails to be a treasurer. So to kind of go over what would be my primary focus. Now, I think this aspect can be applied to every leadership. Whenever you're in leadership, right? What's your drive and direction? What are you fighting for? What do you want to see change, or what do you want to advocate for? You apply this to your position. So for me, when I came in as a treasurer, which I had no idea what I was doing yet, my main goal was, mental health awareness and spreading awareness on discrimination and adversity. This allowed me to apply it to everything I did. This made me limitless. No matter what I knew or what I was going to do, I knew this would be an aspect of it. So this then helped me bring that drive and direction into my fundraising and into my region. Like I said, we'll be going over this 10-step process in a minute. So as a treasurer, you'll be attending your region delegate assembly, your region executive board meeting, and you'll be attending the statewide regional finance and fundraising committee. You also will be chairing your internal region finance committee, and will be part of any ad hoc committee you are participating in as a member or even chairing. So let's kind of go into what I have done, my personal experience within the SSCCC as a treasurer. So I got to hold the first fundraiser. This is something I really wanted to do. I wanted to bring my drive and direction, which was mental health and spreading discrimination on adversity, or on discrimination and adversity within my community. So I brought that drive and I put it into my fundraiser, and I got to create the first fundraiser, or host the first fundraiser. Um, and as a treasurer, I had to encounter a lot of difficulties. First being, I think the biggest one would be policies. Now, the biggest thing was, first I need to change up my region 2 finance policy, which then led us to start questioning the statewide policy, which then we went into the regional finance and fundraising committee to then change that. And now everything had to be realigned. This was a lot of hectic work, which then had to stall my fundraiser, but it was a huge part of being a treasurer. We had to make this work. And so this would be easier for future treasurers to come in, and this will just be a step-by-step process and policy for them. So then the next biggest thing I kind of want to talk about, which even Gian mentioned and everyone else, uh, is the communication part. You have your RAD and you have your VPF. You can easily call or email them, and they'll help you. That's what they're meant for. And this is a huge aspect. You have to communicate. This is something I learned. My first 2 months, I think I had issues with this, and then after that, it was just a rhythm. Hey, I have a problem. Let me immediately call my RAD, and then I immediately call VPF. It's just a teamwork. It's just that's a huge aspect of it. You're not alone in this, right? You have your internal committee to help you work on the finance, on the fundraiser, or whatever you're doing, and then you have your exec board that is there for you. So the next aspect would be, as a treasurer for this year, what did I find most rewarding? And this is actually something that I really was very proud of myself for. When I held the fundraiser, my region's fundraiser, excuse me, um, I had at the very end a student email me, multiple students later down the road, but right at the very end, they thanked me for the fundraiser, and they were really happy to know that I was spreading awareness. And they just kind of mentioned with their thoughts about what the fundraiser meant to them, and just hearing from a student that, hey, I actually got a chance to help someone. It feels amazing. It's something that just it beats. This is like, you just feel very proud of yourself in that moment, and you're very humbled. So that is a huge aspect of what I found rewarding of as being a treasurer in the SSCCC. So within all this, I want to talk about how, you had your school life, you have the SSCCC, and then you have your personal life. You need all three, right? You're doing two of them, and you need the last one for sure, right? You need a personal life. So how would you kind of get these commitments and kind of spread them equally, right? The first thing is what I did personally, is I never touch my phone in the morning. I meditate in the morning, and I keep my phone away, so that it's about for like 10 minutes. This kind of let me like just free my mind and clear it, and then kind of let me know that I'm in my space. So focus on your personal health. That should be one of your primary goals, so that when you move into your academic and your professional, it works perfectly with each other. The next part is that use a calendar. When you for your professional life and your student life, use a calendar. I would have a physical calendar. It works best for me. Some people love electronic calendars. Uh, and for the professional, for the SSCCC, you legit go to their website, and you go to their calendar, and everything that is there for you, all the meetings that are coming up. So that is like a huge part of it. So from this, I kind of want to move on now to the 10-step process, which we're on. So as a treasurer, you're going to have to keep accurate records of financial transactions of your region, develop and maintain the annual budget of that region, provide detailed quarterly budgets reports of that region, oversee the regional banking account with the SSCCC staff, organize a fundraising event to promote the SSCCC's mission and goals with their region, update and maintain all SSCCC finance policies of their regions, submit the monthly report, treasurer report, to the regional affairs director or the RAD, serve as the chair of the internal region finance committee, serve as a member of the statewide SSCCC regional finance and fundraising committee. And there's one more bullet point that's missing, is you need to do whatever else that needs to be done within the region. I know that you have a list of commitments, but that doesn't mean you neglect the rest of the region, right? Whatever other work your rad needs help with, your lad, your vice chair, your comms officer, you need to be there for them and for your your delegates. So yeah, that is what a treasurer is like. Now I would love to pass it on to the comms officer from Region 2, Kelvin Chan.
Thank you so much. Hello everybody. I hope y'all are doing great. I know it's Saturday, and we really appreciate that y'all are here. Not gonna lie, I'm low-key nervous because I've only been a comms officer for 2 months, but I'm gonna try to share my experience. So obviously, I'm Kelvin Chan from Solana Community College. I am currently the Region 2 Communications Officer. I have become notoriously known for my newsletter and Instagram contents, which are merely a few things you will be doing if you decide to run and get elected as communication officer. Generally, being a communications officer, you take on the creative slash artistic slash communications role. You create and publish a content calendar and a monthly newsletter. Just briefly, a content calendar is technically a planner. It contains the content you want to post in your region's social media at a certain date and time. And then aside from your artistic role, you also take on the leadership role. I mean, at the end of the day, you are part of your regional executive board for a reason. With that being said, you chair your regional communications committee. You take minutes during delegate assembly and executive board meetings. You're also expected to establish communications with colleges. If I'm being honest, unfortunately, I have not been able to visit SBAs. However, I'm very thankful for my rad, lad, and treasurer who have helped me with this responsibility. And lastly, you serve as a voting member for your region in the statewide communications committee. And if you get elected, you will be so lucky to work with our 2021 and 2022 VP of Communications, Angelica Campos, who's a very creative and amazing leader. I really, really adore her. Anyway, I also want to be transparent with everybody. Being a communications officer has its own ups and downs. Personally, I struggled and still struggles to keep up with my content calendar. I always miss, I mean, not always, but like sometimes I miss some of the posts. Additionally, I may be creative, but I do run out of ideas as well. I always feel the need to come up with unique and fresh content, but luckily, Canva has a myriad of beautiful templates and design, which really make the job easier. And lastly, another challenge that I encounter is wanting to provide the most accurate and precise information. And when addressing issues, I want to do it in the best possible way. I do not want to offend anybody or spread out false information, because whatever you put publicly, whatever you spread out publicly, it does not only reflect you, but the entire region. And I think my point here is that this kind of work can be very time consuming. So what I do is I start early with my design and my research, to read as many resources as possible so I can have a quite extended understanding of what I post or what I share. On a more positive note, being communications officer has its own perks as well. As we all know, during this very unprecedented time, communication is needed more than ever. Communication is the only way for us to connect with each other. We can't really see each other in person now. And my position as a communication officer has a huge impact on making sure that every college in my region is connected to proper resources, that they're always updated about the works of SSCCC or anything or any issues relevant to students. Along with that, knowing that I'm able to provide students in my region with the most useful information, I'm very fulfilled with my position as a communication officer. And another favorite thing that I have with being a communication officer is that being in this position, it provides you the platform to raise awareness on issues regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion, or any issue. But personally, DEI has always been my main priority of advocacy. Also, at least to me, art has always been my hobby and my passion, even though my major does not necessarily reflect that. So being a communication officer is far beyond a job for me. It doesn't feel like I'm working at all, because the moment I sit and play with Canva, my stress just goes away. It's very relieving. And lastly, I'm not gonna lie, receiving people's praises, knowing that I've done a very wonderful job is one of my favorite things about being a communication officer. And then logistically speaking, as a communication officer, or to be honest, just being part of your region's executive board, you have to spend approximately 15 hours a week. So I know it does take commitment. Hence, you really have to know how to manage your time and organize your daily life efficiently. Personally, I keep a calendar of every commitment I have: meetings, exam, webinars, friends' birthdays, and the list goes on. And then in the addition to that, I also do weekly to-do list every Sunday for my personal, professional, academic commitments. And within that to-do list, I allocate about 2 to 3 hours a day, 7 days a week, to do my comms work, editing newsletter, doing a little research, creating social media content, and so on. In between work, obviously we have to take at least 10 to 20-minute break to make sure that we don't feel burnout. And that's how I do it as a communication officer. I think at the end of the day, overall, the last thing I want to say is that being a communication officer is a very stress relieving, easy and rewarding position. And I really encourage you all to look further into this and hopefully take on the role. With that being said, I'm very, very excited to pass the floor and introduce you all our very wonderful VPRA, Emma McNellis, to tell us about the SSCCC statewide committee. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Kelvin, and thank you to all our presenters who came today to give us a rundown on their regional officer positions and their experience within their own respective roles. So with that, I'm going to take a moment to pause and just kind of give an opportunity before I get into statewide committees, give an opportunity for any of the members of the public who are here to ask any of our presenters any questions regarding their regional officer positions. And if you have any questions, you are welcome to put them in the chat or ask to be recognized.
Chair,
Recognized.
I had a question for Legislative Affairs Director. How do you feel that being LAD has helped harbor a better sense of communication with your local, like, governing municipalities, or do you think that it's something that you deal with just more state level?
Thank you for that question, Joseph. I think it really definitely has helped because I think there's always been like a stigma that students are there's always this like divide between students or administration or students or other leaders in the community. But I think by showing just the act of showing up and making sure that you are bringing forth your message across to whatever problem it is within your city or within your college, making sure that you communicate it on every level from your college to your district to the legislator that you're talking, because and at the same time working with the academic senate faculty, working with anyone that you can work with who can be on board with solving whichever issue, whether it be, say, access to technology, for example. So if you make sure that you let your voice be heard, we are the representative of the student voice. We just got to make sure that when we actually do, participate and engage in shared governance in any committee, in any meeting, that we are always committed to what we say, that we mean what we say. And I'm pretty sure that we always make an impact. We always leave something behind for any of our community leaders or officials to think about, something to think about when it comes to the students' voice.
Thank you.
All right, were there any other questions before we move on? All right, I am not hearing any, but please feel free to put your questions in the chat. We will have another section for Q&A at the very end. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and continue on with our discussion of statewide committees. So all regional officers are required to sit on at least one statewide committee, and RADs and LADs are required to sit on 2. And so there are some statewide committees that are made up of only certain officers, and then there are some that are made up of a combination of officers. And I'll explain what I mean by that as I go through these statewide committees. So the first one here is the Regional Affairs Committee, and this one is made up of only regional affairs directors. So all of the regional affairs directors from all the 10 regions come together in this one Regional Affairs Committee meeting, which is chaired by the Vice President of Regional Affairs. And this committee is charged with handling all matters pertaining to regional participation and development, statewide engagement and collaboration, as well as advocacy resources and support for California community college students. So really, this committee just does a lot of work to ensure our regions are as functional, effective, and supportive as possible. For example, this webinar has been put together by an ad hoc committee that was created under the Regional Affairs Committee. So the next statewide committee is the Internal Affairs Committee. So this committee is also only made up of one regional officer position, which is the vice chairs. So all the vice chairs from all the regions come together and they sit on the statewide Internal Affairs Committee. So this committee is a standing committee that is charged with facilitating the development of training materials for regions on various topics, approving regional accountability reports, developing regional policies, and other internal affairs matters as assigned by the board of directors. So this is a new committee that was discussed by President Coder earlier on in the webinar. And this committee is going to really help vice chairs be a lot more involved statewide and will help to ensure effective training and accountability for all of our regional officers. And this committee is chaired by the vice president. And then next is the Legislative Affairs Committee. And this committee is made up of all of the legislative affairs directors from all of the regions. So this committee is charged with developing, monitoring, and implementing the legislative priorities of the SSCCC, including providing advocacy and training resources, engaging in the legislative process, and communicating the SSCCC's priorities and positions to stakeholders. So this committee does a lot of work to uphold the legislative priorities of the SSCCC. They meet with legislators during legislative visits, and as Gian mentioned earlier, this committee has also helped the SSCCC sponsor 4 bills that have aligned with the SSCCC's priorities of this year. And then this committee is chaired by the Vice President of Legislative Affairs. And next is the Regional Finance and Fundraising Committee. This committee is made up of all the treasurers from all the regions, and this committee is charged with addressing the needs and growth of the SSCCC through communication with the treasurers from each region and providing guidance to the board of directors on any matters related to income and expenditures. So this committee is primarily focused on creating regional budgets and hosting fundraisers like the one that Interpol mentioned to raise money for the SSCCC regions. And this one is chaired by the Vice President of Finance. And then the last statewide committee that is made entirely of a specific regional officer is the Communications Committee. And this committee is made up of all the comms officers from all the regions. And this committee is responsible for developing, updating, and monitoring the SSCCC communications policies, social networking, and the website. And the website was revamped this year by this committee. And this committee also informs the delegates, students, and any members of the public of the actions of the SSCCC. And this just helps to ensure transparency within our organization. And this committee is chaired by the Vice President of Communication. So the last section here, these additional statewide committees, there's the Resolutions Committee, the Conference Committee, and the Equitable Practices Committees. These 3 committees are open for any director to join, as long as they are appointed by either the president or the vice president and approved by the board of directors at a board of directors meeting. I will go ahead and discuss these because these are not only made up of one specific regional officer. So the Resolutions Committee is a standing committee that is charged with overseeing all matters related to resolutions of the SSCCC. So this is the committee that prepared and distributed the submitted resolutions prior to the General Assembly. And it also records the implementation of our past SSCCC resolutions. Those are kind of the goals of the Resolutions Committee. And next up is the Equitable Practices Committee. This committee is a standing committee charged with facilitating the development of equitable practices within the SSCCC and statewide. One event you may have heard of or possibly attended that was hosted by the Equitable Practices Committee was a Deaf Awareness Town Hall. This was put together by Regional Affairs Director for Region 10, Jorge Silva, and LAD 5, who's here today, Gian Gayatao. He's actually the chair of the Equitable Practices Committee. And this event was extremely successful, and it raised awareness for the struggles that our hard of hearing students do face. And so that's kind of the focus of the Equitable Practices Committee. And also within the Equitable Practices Committee, there is a caucus oversight subcommittee. And this is chaired by the vice chair of the Equitable Practices Committee. And this subcommittee, I feel like I've said committee 1,000 times, but this subcommittee is charged with supporting and promoting the caucuses affiliated with the SSCCC. So recently, certain caucuses such as the Spectrum Caucus, the AAPI Caucus, the STEM Caucus, several caucuses have been reactivated by the subcommittee at a board of directors meeting. And so that is kind of the focus of this subcommittee, just to provide oversight for the SSCCC caucuses. And lastly, there is the conference committee. And this committee is responsible for planning the annual General Assembly. So this committee decides the theme, the call for proposal process. It helps identify the keynote speakers. So all the keynote speakers that we had at our recent General Assembly, those were all secured by the conference committee, and just any other aspects of General Assembly planning is taken on by this committee. All right, so that concludes my description of all of our statewide SSCCC committees, and I will go ahead and pass it back to Gerardo Chavez to discuss our regional elections timeline.
All right, thank you very much, Emma. And as you heard, there are so many opportunities for you and for students to get involved in statewide leadership and advocacy. But we're going to talk about how can you get there, how can you get elected, and what is the process. So this is the elections timeline that was approved this year. So we already passed the second week of March. That is where we announced our elections timeline. We gave the heads up to the regions like, hey, elections are coming up in May. And then today, April 3rd, which is the elections webinar. But then on April 23rd, that is where the eligibility and candidate statement must be submitted by the candidate's advisor and college official to this email. And we're gonna dig a little bit deeper on the packet later on. But then on the fourth week of April, that is where if you have submitted a eligibility form, that is where you're gonna get a notification that you have been cleared and that you're verified to participate in the elections. And the reason why we are doing eligibility forms is because in previous elections, what happens is that people run for a position, and when they submit their eligibility form a few weeks later, sometimes it turns out that they're not even eligible to run, to be in that position. So that really backs up the region. It happened to me last year in May when we had our regional elections. Someone ran, and then they already filled out everything. They completed all the paperwork, and then they told me like, "Hey, I don't meet the minimum GPA requirement." And I'm just like, okay, I wish I would have known that a little earlier, so we could have worked that out. So it's just to avoid that. We don't want to waste your time, and the regions do really need executive board officers for next year. The effectiveness, the productivity, and the transition really does depend on how many people are in the executive board. And then on the first week of May, that is where the candidate statements will be distributed. You probably saw the candidate statements for the executive committee elections at General Assembly. So take a note of that. And we are going to go over what is expected of you in the candidate statement. And then finally, May, that is where the elections will be held at each of the region delegate assemblies. each region is going to hold an election at a different date. Some of them are in the beginning of May, some of them are until the end of May, some in mid-May. So please keep in mind, when are the elections? Contact the regional affairs director of your region to know more about the process, to know what is the deadline, not the deadline, but when is the date of the election. So if you can please click on the link on the title, please. All right, so this is the elections packet that was worked and that was constructed within the regional affairs committee. So we just talked about the officer positions that are going to be up for election. So we have the regional affairs director, vice chair, legislative affairs director, treasurer and communications officer. And we have added the link to the actual job descriptions of each position for your reference. Also, if we click on the second link right there, review the elections policy. This year, we revised the region policy and we added more content, more structure and more procedure to it. For example, we are requiring that if you are going to run, that you do submit an eligibility form and a candidate statement. But even if you don't, you'll still be able to get nominated from the floor. Yeah, can you click on the second link, please? Yeah, thank you. You're able to get nominated from the floor, but that requires, you are required to get nominated by a delegate. So as you can see right here, can you scroll all the way up, please? Yeah, so what are the requirements? Well, all candidates must be enrolled in a minimum of 5 semester units in California Ed Code, and that is where you're, that's the Ed Code right there. So if you are enrolled in a community college and you're enrolled in a minimum of 5 units in that region, then you're eligible to run for that position. You can't run for another position in another region if you're a student at Region 9. You can't go run for a position in Region 3 unless if you're taking units over there and then you declare that to be your home college. So where you're able to run for your position within your region, make sure that the home college is within that region. Also, candidates must be able to dedicate a minimum of 15 hours per week to their position. We just talked about, what are the expectations, the time commitments, what are you going to be doing within those positions. So please keep in mind that you're gonna have to at least dedicate a minimum of 15 hours per week. Sometimes it may be less, sometimes it may be more, but we just put that to bring awareness of the time commitments for these positions. But then we also have a few desired qualifications, and that is just experience within student leadership, whether that is within the SSCCC, Student Body Association, a region. So we're just asking that we desire those qualifications. If you don't have those, you're not disqualified. Those are just desired qualifications. Also, Brown Act, parliamentary procedure, familiarity with chairing meetings, those are just desired. Now, the candidate statement, we do have a few questions that we're asking that you include in the candidate statement. For example, the number one is asking, after reviewing the job description, what activities and specific skills make you qualified, and why are you running for this position? So you have to provide an answer to that, but also please provide an answer to the second question, which is please briefly discuss the core commitments of the Vision for Success and understanding diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then what issues in higher education are you most dedicated in addressing and why? So those are the 3 questions that if you're running for vice chair, RAD, whatever it is, that you're supposed to answer. But if you are running for a regional affairs director or a legislative affairs director, there is a bonus question that we are asking. And that is, what makes you best suited to serve as a voting member on the SSCCC Board of Directors? So that's only for regional affairs directors. and the Legislative Affairs Director. And then lastly, I am going to talk about the eligibility form. So if we can go to the slide or the packet, please. Yeah, and then it will be the third link right there. Yes. All right, so this is the eligibility form. Please have your advisor, your student body association advisor, dean of student life, or any other college official fill this out on your behalf. Work with them, provide the information for them, because it is important that you follow the instructions. You cannot send this form by yourself. It has to be by a college official, by an advisor, and then you have to send it, they have to send it to the email that we provide on the packet. It is very important that we receive it on time, so we're able to verify your eligibility. If you submit it by yourself, we're not gonna be able to take it. So please keep in mind that only your advisor or any other college official, it can be, a counselor. For example, like I'm not involved in my student body association, so I have to contact an advisor to a counselor to fill out this eligibility form. So please keep that in mind. And then if we can go back to the slide. That is the email that you will send it to. So it is that your candidate, your advisor or your college official will send it to. So it is verified@studentsenateccc.org. That is the email that your advisor or your college official will send your eligibility form and your candidate statement by April 23rd, no later than midnight. And that is the candidate process. Please keep an eye for more information to come. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our VPRA, MF McNellis, or the regional affairs director of your respective region. I will actually leave the packet in the chat. Please, go through it, go over the election policy. So you're more familiar with the candidate process, but if you have any information, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. We'll work with you. But with that being said, I will now pass it back to VPRA Emma McNellis.
Thank you for reviewing that for us, Gerardo. All right, so I will one last time, I will open up the floor for any questions regarding anything that has been discussed during this webinar. That does conclude our webinar. So were there any questions from anyone who was here today on anything that was discussed? We'll give it just a few minutes. All right, I'm not hearing any. But like Gerardo said, if you do, as you're reviewing the elections process or anything at all, if a question does come up, please feel free to email myself at vpra@studentsenateccc.org or your respective RAD for your region, because they also will have all the information necessary. So with that being said, I'm going to move on to our last slide, which is just our Connect With Us slide. This has our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook handles. And please feel free to reach out to us and let us know your experiences, whether it's with this webinar or anything in general. We love to hear from you guys. So yeah, that concludes our webinar today. I see, oh yes, Gerardo, could you put that link to the elections packet in the chat? Oh, you did. It is in the chat, Olivia. All right, so that concludes our webinar today. Again, feel free to reach out to us if you have any more questions. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you again to our presenters.
Thank you all.